Presidente. Buongiorno, benvenuto, signore Laviola, un'altra volta al Parlamento Europeo. Very briefly, I have three questions. On the first one, it is regarding the too big to fail. When a bank is too big to fail? What is your view on that? As you know, in America, in the last financial crisis, 70 banks were forced to close, and the money of the TARP program was to viable banks, and all this money was sent back to the budget. So what do you think about this? Second question, what's your vision about banking concentration? It seems that in Europe there are two trends. In the south of Europe, it seems that there is a preference for having 3, 4, 5 big national players. There is no room for small saving banks, but in the north of Europe, we have banks with a global role combined with hundreds of small local and regional banks. What do you think about this, or your opinion? And finally, the European Court of Auditors assessed in January in a communication that the SRB denied full disclosure. According to the ECA, the SRB had to avoid data from the ECB. So how do you see possible improvements for the SRB's accountability in terms of its operational efficiency and institutional independence? Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Well, when a bank is too big to fail, this is a very difficult question, and I don't think that anybody found, a precise answer, every time. But I have to say that what happened during the financial crisis, where, of course, the taxpayers were called to foot the bill, so to speak, was decided not to be repeated again. And that's why the framework of resolution was, devised, first of all, in the international domain by the Financial Stability Board and the Basel Committee, and then applied with all the necessary specificities in Europe. Now, this means that we will never have any bank too big to fail. I don't know, I have no answer to that, but the issue is that there are certainly certain safeguards now, starting from a credible bail-in and MREL level, and then the fund, and then the backstop. It is also true that the BRD, when it was conceived, it was mainly for idiosyncratic shocks. So if you have systemic effects, systemic shocks, where you have multiple failures of medium to large size banks, then probably, you have to also think about what should happen. And that's why, the intervention of public authorities is still envisaged within the provisions of the BRD. On banking concentration, it seems to be, from what you say, that there is the difference between the model that is emerging in the Southern Europe with respect to the Northern framework. Well, I believe that here it is not that you decide, it is the regulatory authority or the public authority or the state that decides what is the model. Banks, are entrepreneurs. They have to decide first and foremost by their own. Certainly the regulation has a bearing, as however all the market forces and the development in financial markets. Therefore, at certain point, mainly in Southern Europe, which were very much hit by the financial crisis, later than the others, but very much hit by the economic crisis, then the financial crisis, a trend of concentration emerged in order to diversify the revenues, to enlarge the deposit clientele, and to reap the economies of scale and scope, and also to reduce, in certain cases, the excess capacity. Now, if we continue to have a complete European framework with integrated, management of capital and liquidity, as I said before, I don't think that we should discuss, much more the differences between one banking model in one country and another in another country, if banks are really intended as European. But this is not to say that small banks are not useful. Quite the opposite. Small banks can cater for also the needs of the smaller clientele. for which large banks in certain areas might not have interest, but also these has to be served. So I think that the multiple type of actors in terms of size and type of activities that can be provided to the real economy are necessary wherever and all over in Europe. As to the European Court of Auditors report on the SRB, which said that the information were not properly disclosed, from my understanding, I also read the report, from my understanding, the SRB said that there were certain information that were not being deemed useful to be disclosed and for which it needed an authorization from the ECB, because were information acquired from the ECB. Now, so on this, I cannot say much more than what I read, what the report said, and what in the answer of the SRB, judging from the outside. In terms of the general improvement of the disclosure and the communication, I believe, but this is, again, looking from the outside and with all due respect of what has already been done and improved in this year, I think that there are margins of improvement starting from the website and probably some better communication also vis-à-vis the banking system. Thank you.